Hi everybody, I am here today with a haul of recently obtained books from the library and the bookstore. Matt and I also picked up some new DVDs at the Bullmoose, and actually, let's start with the DVDs because that stack is a lot smaller than the books. The first movie that we picked up is Almost Famous. This is a semi-autobiographical movie by the director Cameron Crowe about an experience he had in high school when he was working for Rolling Stone and writing reviews about concerts. This movie came out in 1999, and we have never seen it, so we're very excited to watch it. The next DVD we picked up was Splash, which is from the 1980s, and it stars John Candy, Daryl Hannah, Tom Hanks, and Eugene Levy from American Pie. So this is it's like a romance movie about a guy who falls in love with a mermaid, and I have been a fan of Tom Hanks for many years. The next mermaid-related movie we picked up was Aquamarine, which stars JoJo, Emma Roberts, and Sarah Paxton. So a fun fact about JoJo, I always seem to find a way that I'm connected to celebrities through people that I know. So with JoJo, I did theater with a girl in high school when I was at Sauhegan. Her name was Rachel Barker, and she did modeling with JoJo. I never actually got to meet her, and her music is not really in my age demographic. I feel like she was more popular with my sister's age range, but I'm really excited to watch this movie. The next DVD we picked up is season 1 of the original Odd Couple from the 1960s, and we are going to compare the original version to the 2015 remake with Matthew Perry and Thomas Lennon. The last DVD we picked up at Bullmoose today was Scream 3. As you can tell, we're working our way through the Scream franchise. I ordered Scream 2 on Amazon 2 weeks ago because Sonia saw Scream 7 a couple of weeks ago at the theater, and she said that in order to see Scream 7, we have to see all of the other movies first, and we've only seen the first one. So as you guys know, these movies star Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Neve Campbell, and Matthew Lillard from the Scooby-Doo remake from 2010. Oh, and Patrick Dempsey from Grey's Anatomy is also in here as the love interest for Sidney Prescott. So I'm excited to see what the dynamic between those two characters will be like. Okay, so the first book I am about to finish is called I Hear She's a Real Bitch by Jen Agg. This is a memoir of a chef who works at a restaurant in Canada. It is on From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR because it describes Monica. I'm going to give it 4 stars. The second book that I am just finished reading for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is called Revenge Wears Prada, The Devil Returns by Lauren Weisberger. I gave it 4.5 stars. This book describes Rachel. The next book that I just finished reading for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is called Give a Girl a Knife by Amy Thielen. And this also describes Monica. 5 stars. The next nonfiction book that I'm in the middle of right now is called, not exactly in the middle, I'm only on chapter 8, page 69. This is the tell-all memoir of the person who used to do public relations for Facebook, and it's really an in-depth, deep dive into what happened at that company behind the scenes. With Cindy recommended this to me. So far, I am on chapter 8, page 69. The next book I read, I got as a birthday present from my mom's friend Lucinda. It's called The Academy by Elin Hildenbrand. Kathleen and I read this for our thematic TBR on student-teacher relationships for our From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR. There is a blog post where we review this book in the episode of Gilmore Girls where Paris dates Asher. So that blog post with the review of this book and the Love Hypothesis will be linked in the description. The next book that I just bought today at Nonesuch Books with Sally and Matt was 100 Summers by Beatrice Williams. This is set during Memorial Day, 1938 in Rhode Island, and it was paired up on a reading list I found for Friends characters with Rachel, and the relationship that is on the brink of this episode is on the brink of the collapse in this book is very similar, I'm assuming very similar to Ross and Rachel's dynamic. So I'm looking forward to reading that. The next two books I borrowed from my neighbor next door, Kathleen. The first book is Brooklyn by Colm Tobin. This is a memoir about an Irish man who grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I started this last Thursday. I am on page 204, and I should finish this tonight. The next book that I borrowed from Kathleen is The Last Train to Key West by Chanel Cleeton. Chanel Cleeton is a new author for me. I started reading this series last year because I read it out of order. The first book I read in this series, I read in December. It was called Our Last Days in Barcelona. This is book 3 in the series, and it's set in Key West, Florida during the Great Depression. I have really enjoyed this series so far, and I've enjoyed getting to know these characters. Along with Brooklyn, I should finish this book tonight so I can give it back to Kathleen. I'm on chapter 24, page 215. The next book I recently purchased was Across the Vanishing Sky, Catherine Cowell's new release from March 3rd. Currently, I am only on page 57, chapter 8, and I love her writing style. If you are into romantic small-town mysteries, I highly recommend this author to you guys. Check her out at your local library. The next book that I read for the thematic TBR for the Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR about student-teacher relationships was The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This obviously pairs up with the Ross and Elizabeth dynamic because these Adam and Olive are very similar to Ross and Elizabeth because of their age gap. The next book I purchased today at Bullmoose was How to Write a Love Story, which is How to Write a Love Story. So this book to me sounds similar to Book Lovers by Emily Henry, only as set in Ireland, and I love the dynamics. I've only read one other book by this author. It was her Christmas book called Snowed In, and she really knows how to write good banter, much along the lines of Emily Henry and Abby Jimenez. The next book I picked up today at Bullmoose was The Dead Romantics. This is Ashley Poston's release from a couple of years ago. It's paired up with Phoebe's character on Friends because of how she can talk to spirits. Because this is about a romance author who has to take a break from her career because her father dies and her family owns a funeral home, and she ends up talking to the ghost of her boss. It's really fun. If you like books like this with themes about ghosts and stuff, you will really love Ashley Poston's books. She writes a lot of small town romances, and I love her writing. She's coming out with a new book in June, and she will be at South Portland on June 15th, so I cannot wait to hopefully meet her. I have to sign up for her event at Books A Million. The next book I am reading right now, I picked up at Grump and Sunshine on Saturday because the author was there signing. Her name is E.W. Anderson, and she's a local Maine author. This book is about a girl who works in a bookstore in England, and the characters from the classic novels in the bookstore that she works at come to life at night. So it's really cool because, as you guys know, for the TBR, me and Kathleen have been reading a lot of classic books like Little Women. Like, the characters from Little Women come to life, which is so much fun. Because as I've mentioned before, the character from Little Women I relate to the most is Jo March. The next book I'm currently reading is Abby Jimenez's new release, The Night We Met. This was released last week. I purchased it with a gift card I got from my birthday from my sister. So thank you, Kristen, for the gift card. This book is the sequel to So You Say You'll Remember Me, and it focuses on the side couple, Larissa and Chris, and I have really loved the buildup of their dynamic and getting to know them. And currently I am on chapter 13, page 129. For library books, this book was recommended to me by Gabby at Gabby Reads. It's about a senior citizen serial killer who comes out of retirement because her cases are coming up again in true crime shows. I started this book last week when I got out of the library. I am going to finish it tonight because I am in the last home stretch of chapters. The next book I'm reading was recommended to me by Jordaline at Jordaline Reads. It's called Play Nice by Rachel Harrison. This is a haunted house story about a house that is possessed. You will like this book if you have read Home Before Dark by Riley Sager or How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. And currently in this book, I am on chapter 8, page 53. The next book I am rereading is Eileen by Otessa Moshfegh. This is by the same author as My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This book is so intense. I've read it for the first time last year. It's a really quick read. It's only 259 pages, and I should finish this tonight. The next book that I am reading is Judy Blume, A Life by Mark Oppenheimer. This is the memoir of the biography. This is the biography of my favorite childhood author, Judy Blume. If you grew up reading her books like I did, you should definitely check this out. I'm only on chapter 8. I just started this yesterday. The next book I'm reading is Mansion Beach by Meg Mitchell-Moore. I first read this author 2 summers ago. She wrote a book that is set at a summer stock theater. Her books are set on Block Island in Rhode Island, and I picked this up because I am going to Rhode Island this summer, not Block Island, but Narragansett, because that's where I'm going to for my cousin's wedding, and I'm very excited for the wedding. So this book reminds me of the drama in Desperate Housewives. The next book that I'm reading is The Toll House by Carly Reagan. This was recommended to me by Carly at the Pastel Bookshelf, and she pairs it up with The Sixth Sense in her book to movie. Read this book if you like this movie video, which I'll tag in the description. I am currently on page 115, chapter 14. The next book I am reading is a mystery book that is based on a real-life mystery that actually happened in Ohio in 2015 about 5 girls who were murdered. I am on chapter 14, page 157. The next book I am rereading from Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR is Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez, the 3rd book in the Friend Zone trilogy. I am on page 262 and author's notes. Abby Jimenez based her main character Vanessa on a activist who had cystic fibrosis. Her name was Claire Weiland. So the reason why I connect to this book is because I lost a family friend in 2014 from the same disease. And I also believe there's a plot of infertility in this book because, or maybe I'm miscalculating that. Oh no, so her sister is an alcoholic and leaves her 1-year-old niece with her to take care of. And I really love the found family that she forms with the main male character, Adrian, and her niece. So I really love Abby Jimenez's writing style and how she incorporates people with various disabilities into her books. The final book I am rereading for the From Manhatten to Stars Hollow TBR is Remarkably Like Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This book I first read in 2023. It was on my top 23 list of books I read in 2023. It focuses on an elderly woman named Tova, and she has recently lost her son. She's an elderly woman who volunteers at an aquarium, and she bonds with the octopus in the sea life exhibit Marsalis. Obviously, you can guess why this book was picked for a friend's reading list, because Ross has a monkey named Marcel. There's also a couple of different plot lines in Friends that deal with grief. Phoebe loses her grandmother, and so do Monica and Ross. So that's another reason why this book pairs up perfectly with Friends. And in my reread, I am on page 220, and I should finish this today. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys later. Have a great rest of your day.